Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charleston, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. Last season, James Harden decided that he wanted to force his way out of Houston and join the Brooklyn Nets. We all remember this. And at the time, I believe the majority of us that follow the NBA thought that it was going to be over for everyone. Right? In the beginning, we had some question marks. Is the team going to be any good on the defensive side of the floor? But after some times, it was clear to see that this team was pretty scary. They were the only trio in the NBA that had a three-headed monster that on any given night can score between 75 to 80 points, and I think they average about 75 points per game a night. There was no trio in the NBA that could do that, and essentially, the thing came about, it's not even about playing defense. It's like, can you stop this team from scoring? Because they're just going to blow you off the floor offensively. And they were very, very scary from an offensive standpoint. And even me as a Clippers supporter, I thought it would be extremely difficult for the Clippers to beat them. And the Clippers didn't beat them in any game that they played them last year. Now, although the second game was a total travesty, when James Harden flopped his way into that call and they called an offensive foul on Kawhi Leonard, which to me I think is a total joke. But that first game, the Clippers pretty much played a perfect game. And in the last 3 minutes, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant came back and hit some 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 and it was game over, right? And I was saying to myself, man, I don't see how it's going to be really, really tough to beat this team. But I also had some deep concerns that I thought that this team was eventually things were going to go awry or things were going to go off the rail. And it was all based on really a hunch, right? It's just a hunch that I had. If some of you had been here at the beginning of this season, it was something that I was saying going into this season. And then that's exactly what happened between that current or that net big three, that former iteration of that big three. And they only ended up playing 16 games together, which actually is very disappointing to think that there was all of this hype and at the end they only ended up playing 16 games together. And according to a report that I read from CBS Sports this morning, it seems as if that situation in Brooklyn actually was turning into a Cold War. So I actually want to get into the meat of this article here and really break this thing down so we can get back into what I wanted to say. So the article starts off with the headline, Nets, James Harden, Kevin Durant dynamic turned into a Cold War that made everyone miserable per report. James Harden admitted on Tuesday that when he was essentially forcing his way out of Houston at the start of last season, his first choice was to be traded to the Philadelphia 76ers to join Joel Embiid and reunite with Daryl Morey. It took him a year longer than he would have liked, but he finally got his way. It continued on, the source said, based on conversations with Brooklyn figures and those close to Durant, it's clear Harden's blockbuster trade for Ben Simmons wouldn't have occurred without Durant's blessings. As more and more Nets personnel faced the reality approaching the trade deadline that Harden wanted out, Durant's approval mattered more than anyone else's. KD wanted to get rid of James Harden, one person familiar with the two superstars said, but he knew it was over. The article continues on. Until the week of the deadline, Harden maintained his commitment to Brooklyn in the conversations with the Nets staffers, sources said, but he began distancing himself from the team with a similar pattern to how he forced his way out of Houston. After posting an emphatic 37-point triple-double on 13 of 24 shooting at the San Antonio Spurs on January 21st, Harden left the team for Houston, and a night of clubbing, BR reported he rejoined the traveling party in Minnesota for January 25th against the Timberwolves and scored just 13 points on 13 attempts. When the Nets arrived in Utah for their fourth game in a 5-game road trip, members of the traveling party were openly discussing their desire for swapping Harden for Simmons. There were a lot of things said in that article. A lot of things said. And apparently, it seemed like James Harden quit his way out of Brooklyn by all accounts. That is exactly what happened. And it seemed as if that Harden left Durant with no choice but to greenlight that trade. According to that article, that's what happened, right? Initially, I think KD was a bit hesitant to give him the green light for that trade. But after some time, I think KD had to face the reality and face the music and say, okay, listen, this guy doesn't want to be here anymore, so we have to get rid of him. And I think no one can argue that Harden forced his way out of Brooklyn. However, my only question is this. Why? Why did James Harden want to leave the Brooklyn Nets? Why would he force his way off a team that had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving just to go play with Joel Embiid? Why would James Harden want that? Obviously, if he stayed on the Brooklyn Nets, he would have a greater chance of winning the entire thing because he had more help. He had more star power. All of us agreed on this, right? Most people thought that the Brooklyn Nets were going to win the NBA championship after some time. Initially, as I said, we had some questions, but I think ultimately it became very clear. So I think the reason he did that was because Brooklyn was turning into a total circus and clown show. In my opinion, I think that's what the Nets turned into. The Brooklyn Nets have zero leadership, like all throughout that organization. They have no leadership whatsoever. Secondly, another reason, number two, I personally believe that the relationship between Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant played a role in James Harden wanting to leave that team. I think that Harden was bothered by the fact that Kyrie wasn't fully committed to the team. And some people hate when we bring this up, but we got to talk about it. We have to have an honest debate. If we're going to talk about this thing, let's talk about it in a robust way, right? Let's not hide our head. Let's get into it. I think that James Harden was perplexed by some of the things that Kyrie Irving was saying and doing, primarily because Kyrie Irving said that he wasn't against getting vaccinated, but instead he was doing it for people. He was deciding not to get vaccinated because he wanted to take a stand for people that were losing their jobs because they were forced to get a vaccine. And, jobs are saying, listen, if you don't get it, you're not going to be able to work it. That was the reason that Kyrie Irving took that position. I think James Harden, based on everything that I've read, based on some of the videos we produced, I think he looked at that as a total bunch of nonsense. This is just my opinion. If I'm looking at it from the vantage point of James Harden, I think that's what he thought to himself. Because Harden probably thought to himself, bro, we need your help. We need your help. Kevin Durant at the time is hurt. He's injured, right? Why am I the only one out here playing games when you are fully healthy and you are capable to play games? Another aspect of this entire thing that no one really discusses is this. Just because Harden and Kevin Durant and all the other Nets players got vaccinated, we don't know how they truly felt about it. Maybe LeBron himself didn't want to get vaccinated. As you remember, initially, when they were going around, LeBron was mute. He wasn't saying anything, to the point where Stephen A. Smith went on CNN and said, why isn't this guy being more vocal about it? So we don't know. Just because Harden did it doesn't mean that he wanted to do it. That's the first thing. Every Net player that you see playing on the court that's playing is a result of them being vaccinated. They would not be able to play, right? So that's something that I think some of us have to take into consideration. The other thing is this. I think he also took an issue with the fact that Kyrie was deciding to take a personal stance that was affecting everybody else. Everybody else meaning everybody else on the team. I think Harden viewed that as a very selfish thing to do, in my personal opinion, because James Harden is saying to himself, wait a minute, bro, you're taking this stance. This is your decision. What does it have to do with me? And what does it have to do with us? That's a personal decision you're making. And on top of all of it, basically what you're saying is you are willing to get vaccinated to help us play, but you're doing it for some other reason, yet you're not against it. He's like, bro, what are you? I can guarantee you that was what James Harden was thinking. We also touched on another report in a recent video that we did, where I think they were in a road game, and Kyrie Irving, as you know, likes to burn sage in various arenas to get rid of, bad karma and all of these different things. And he was walking around the locker room doing that. And according to sources, they said James Harden was staring at him. You know how James Harden's face be looking. He said he was staring at Kyrie Irving like it was a freaking bear. Like, what is this guy doing? I think James Harden was put off by Kyrie Irving, and I think really that was the issue there. I think that was the issue. I think Harden was looking at it and saying, what makes you think you're above the entire unit? What makes you think that your time and your positions on things are more important than what everybody else has going on in their life and all of our positions? What makes you think that? I think really that was at the heart of it, because I think Harden really wanted it to work. He showed it because he played the most games of anybody on the team. If we're talking about the trio, he played the most games. And I think that ultimately, I think Harden knew KD wasn't going to stand up to Kyrie Irving because they were too close. And he said to himself, I'm out. These people are totally confused. There's no leadership whatsoever. The team at one point decides, listen, you can't be a part-timer. You stay at home. We're going to pay you until you're ready to make a decision. Then a few months later or whatever it is, they turn around and say, no, you know what? You can come back. You can play. And Harden was looking at it like, what the hell is going on? Trust me. If the Nets had decided to say, Kyrie Irving, you stay at home. You stay at home. You're only going to be able to play until you make a decision. I think Harden, he would have probably been a little bit annoyed, but I think he'd have been better off with that position than them changing their minds and all of a sudden say you can come back for no good reason. I think that was something that bothered him. And I think if we're talking about this team from a leadership standpoint, it's non-existent. The Nets have no leadership structure whatsoever. You can just tell by the series of events that have taken place under this. In this organ, there's no leadership whatsoever. And I applaud James Harden for getting out of a situation that he felt was toxic for him. Do I agree with the way that he did it? Hell no. You don't quit your way out of a situation like that. That is just my opinion. Everybody's different. I can't decide what another man should do, right? But what I do applaud him for was the fact that he took matters into his own hand and he wasn't going to sit there and just keep himself in a situation that he didn't find favorable. That I respect. If you don't like your reality, you change it. You make decisions. And that's what he did. He said, you know what, man, this thing is not working. I'm getting the hell up out of there. Period. And now the question still remains. Kevin Durant is still hurt. Kyrie Irving is still playing half the games. And Ben Simmons is going to be back, I think, after All-Star weekend. But I think he made the right decision to leave. I think he did. I would not have stayed. Trust me, I would not have stayed. If I saw all of that nonsense, I'd have been like, what the hell is going on? I'm out. You guys can figure this out. And I don't care what you think about who wanted to be here, who didn't want to be here. Bro, go look at the games played and who played the most games on this team. It was me. So this thing of you want to be here, you don't want to be here, that's just a bunch of nonsense. Who's playing the games? So these are my thoughts and opinions, and I agree with his decision to wanting to get the hell out. I don't agree with the way he did it. So my thoughts, my question to you guys is, what do you think about this entire scenario? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamers Pro. Wishing you guys an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode.